Kamala Harris is back in the news. She's set to relive her failed White House bid with the release of a new memoir. But Democrats fear her September book tour will reopen old wounds and drain energy from a party still staggering under $20 million in campaign debt she left behind. Her book, it's called 107 Days, debuts on Tuesday. She kicks it off with a 15-city tour that some allies worry will become an I told you so exercise against Donald Trump, rather than a forward-looking moment for the party. And even those close to her doubt it will help her buttress her chances for repeat candidacy. Early experts show Harris painted herself as a tragic heroine in the brief period after Biden was forced from the race, reflecting on how and why Democrats collapsed spectacularly. For critics inside the party, her reappearance threatens to repeat the Hillary Clinton playbook after her 2016 defeat. A book, a tour, bitterness, and more division. Democrats are also frustrated that Harris admits to failing to act sooner as Biden stumbled, and even reveals she avoided picking Pete Buttigieg as her running mate because he was gay. Her public reappearance could help the party grieve, some Democrats say, despite the awkward timing. But others see it as one more reason to move on, as governors like Gavin Newsom and J.B. Pritzker step up as future leaders for 2028. So what's the real message here? Kamala Harris is back. She's going to be everywhere for a while promoting her book. And hey, I hope she sells some books. I hope she makes some money. Is this going to rehabilitate her image and make her the front runner for the Democratic nomination in 2028? I don't think so. Michael Dukakis didn't get another chance. Kerry didn't get another chance. She had a shot. She had the support of the party. It didn't work out. Next, let's go a little bit deeper here. I am not one of those who thinks that Kamala Harris was a horrible candidate. I mean, it was still a pretty close election. Everyone likes to forget that. Was she a superstar? No. In retrospect, would it have been a lot better, obviously, if Joe Biden had simply announced 2 years earlier he wasn't running, let the Democrats fight it out and find the strongest. Obviously, at this point, you don't need me to tell you the stunningly obvious that most people now would agree with. She's written her book. She's talked about it. I got to tell you, I'm a real political junkie. Not that excited about reading it. Part of it, it's depressing. For those of us who are centrist and who fear the right-wing capture of America, the disintegration of the fundamental pillars of democracy, it was very painful to live through last year, much less having to live through it again by looking at the book. So I, for one, won't be buying it. But I have to tell you, I'm long past the time when I buy a lot of campaign memoirs. Now, when I was younger, growing up, The Boys in the Bus, and there were a lot of great books about campaigns. And they were helpful in part because there wasn't cable TV news. You couldn't consume nonstop punditry and political insights the way you can today. But still, these books do sell. There's no doubt about it. And these books can help candidates. Here's the problem for Kamala Harris. A lot of people thought, okay, this is our big chance. The Republicans have been captured by this cult. They're nominating someone who's the most unpopular candidate in the history of the United States. The Democrats have to win this. It's one thing for Hillary to have lost to Trump in 2016. All the country really knew was, here's a guy, charismatic TV performer, businessman. Okay, a lot of people didn't know much about him. But in 2024, everybody knew what Donald Trump was about. His negatives were sky high. And so the Democrats were thinking, okay, we don't really want Biden. Wish he'd gotten out earlier. But now we have someone who's young, who's articulate, who's good looking. This is going to be a slam dunk. And no, it didn't turn out that way. At all. So I don't know whether Trump is running again or even if we have an election. I think a lot of people who liked Kamala Harris, certainly all the people who voted for her, who like her, are still going to be thinking, again, if we even have a Democratic primary, if the Democratic Party has not been outlawed by 2028, which is not a sure thing. But if we have an actual primary, I don't think there's much demand for people saying if Kamala Harris had just had more time, if she just had more money, she would have won. Because let's assume for a moment that our entire democracy has not collapsed, that Trump is either gone from the stage for one reason or another, or accepts reality that the Constitution prevents him from running for a third term, and the Republicans have some kind of an open forum and a free-for-all, and maybe you have Marco Rubio, maybe you have J.D. Vance, maybe a Tucker Carlson. They get in, they slug it out, and it's a new face. Maybe it's Donald Trump Jr. Who knows? But it's a new face. Whoever that new face is, it's highly unlikely that that person's negative. The people who say this person is a horrible person and is likely to destroy the country, it's highly unlikely that person is going to have negatives anywhere near as high as Donald Trump's negatives, right? So the argument against Harris would be, look, you couldn't beat Trump inheriting a great economy, a surging economy, a growing economy at a time when Trump had astronomically high disapproval rating. How in the world are you going to deal with a relative fresh face like J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio, which nobody seems to know really what he stands for, if anything, other than working a lot of long hours in every cleanup job Trump gives him? So it's arguably going to be much harder for a Democratic candidate to win in 2028 if they do have a candidate who doesn't have the same astronomical negatives as Trump. So I can't imagine there being a huge constituency for Kamala Harris getting another nomination. So where does she go? What does she do? I think if you're Kamala Harris, you say, look, I wanted to be in public service. I wanted to have an impact. I frankly got higher than I ever thought I would get. And again, let's not take away from her. Saying she's not a great politician is like saying someone who won the Heisman Trophy in college but flamed out their first year or two in professional sports wasn't a good football player. Happens all the time. Think of one of the best collegiate basketball players that ever went to your college or a college you like the most. Someone who just seemed like they just dominated. They got All-American status. They got to the pros, didn't work out. Sometimes it just happens. Kamala Harris was the equivalent of a collegiate All-American in her state of California. Now, remember, California is not any state. It's the largest state in the country. Its economy is bigger than all but about 4 or 5 countries in the entire world. So there's tremendous competition to get into anything and to get elected to anything. And she had a series of elected posts where, through her talent, her charm, her intelligence, her political savvy, she was able to work her way up the political ladder of California. And guess what? That takes a tremendous amount of skill and savvy and intelligence. You do not get to be a senator from California without having world-class political skill. It's one thing to be a senator from Wyoming. There's only 500,000, 400,000 people there. So you probably know anyone who could ever run for office because they were in your high school student government. It's such a small state. California, with tens and tens and tens of millions of voters, the competition is fierce. And she did well there. She won there. And it's true. When she ran for president in 2020, campaign wasn't very impressive. She dropped out early. It just didn't take off. But you know what? As much fun as it is to laugh at Joe Biden, I well remember when he ran in 1987, 88, very unsuccessfully, didn't work out. I remember when he ran unsuccessfully in 2008, didn't work out. And yet he ended up president. Ronald Reagan flirted with the idea of running in 68, didn't quite pull the trigger, but a lot of things were in motion. Didn't happen. Ran in 76, didn't win. 80, won big time. 84, won big time. So you can't necessarily scratch someone off just because they've lost. Here's the difference, though, between Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, and Ronald Reagan. The two gentlemen, and I'm using that term, and I do think Ronald Reagan was a gentleman. The two men in this particular case had clear-cut, unique ideological agendas, frameworks, perspectives, and a brand image. They had a reliable lane within their party. Trump, you could say, was really the only one in that lane. He spoke for a lot of Republican voters in 2016 and in 2020 and 2024 who don't like the old Republican Party of just tax cuts for the rich, cut social spending, balance budgets. Trump had a very distinct lane. Ronald Reagan positioned himself as the most viable conservative voice in American politics and is a great communicator. Kamala Harris doesn't have a specific lane. She ran sort of more on the left when she ran for president. Then she adopted the Biden platform as vice president and then ran as more or less a centrist in 2024. So she doesn't have any kind of distinct brand, therefore no extremely loyal base within the party. So my prediction for her, her team will take polls. They're going to say, this isn't going anywhere. And it's going to be a whole lot of travel and begging people on the phones for money and a lot of unfun stuff. And, traveling to Iowa, staying in Holiday Inns. There's another potential future for Kamala Harris. And it frankly looks more like Michelle Obama. And I'm not saying that because they're both Black women. I'm saying because they're both famous and have goodwill with a lot of people. I think Kamala Harris's future is going to look more like Barack Obama's future. And that is high-paid speaking gig, highly paid book deals, maybe her own TV show on Netflix, podcast that's highly, highly lucrative. Because while I don't think Kamala Harris has a great political future in elective office, and she did sort of famously take herself out of running as a potential governor of California, I do think as a brand, she has a lot of fans and a lot of supporters and a lot of people who admire her. And I could easily see her putting together a multimedia conglomerate in the way a lot of politicians and former politicians do. And Prince Harry does this. If you have some level of fame, and it's not because you were a criminal, you can just monetize it in a lot of ways. And I think you're going to see her more books, podcasts, Netflix shows, speaking gigs, and having the time of her life, enjoying herself, and keeping her hand in politics, but not running for office. She had a great run. It didn't get to the absolute top. But I mean, do you consider yourself a failure if you're a professional baseball player your whole career and you win the pennant several times? You come in second place, third place several times. You have some records, but you don't quite win the World Series. Do you consider yourself a failure? I don't think so. And I realize what I'm saying is probably going to alienate me from everyone. Because some of you think, how dare he say something good about the former Democratic nominee? And others of you are upset because I'm not saying, of course she should run again and be the front runner. It's her turn. I'm calling it like it is. That's what I perceive it. Objective, based on my own sense of reality, with the understanding that nobody's 100% objective. What we try to do here on this show is analyze the top news stories of the day, filtered through the lens of communication skills and personal development skills. So the real lesson here, I think Kamala Harris is a good communicator. I don't think she's a world-class communicator in the sense of Bill Clinton in his heyday, Obama within his context of his heyday. And in the modern world, the skill set is different. It's more about being more like Donald Trump. Yes, I said that. And like Zoran Mondani, people who really understand how to capture attention in social media, say interesting, provocative things, not daily, but hourly. That is the new skill set.